The reading module is considered as the toughest part of PTE, but we have a solution for this. If you face problems in solving reading, you can purchase our reading course, which includes essential grammar rules for each type of questions that may help to ace your score. Call us for more information on 95880-68207 or 63679498840. Thank you. Descendants of the Maya living in Mexico still sometimes refer to themselves as the corn people. The phrase is not intended as metaphor. Rather, it's meant to acknowledge their abiding dependence on this miraculous grass, the staple of their diet for almost 9,000 years. For an American like me, growing up linked to a very different food chain, yet one that is also rooted in corn, not to think of himself as a corn person suggests either a failure of imagination or a triumph of capitalism. Or perhaps a little of both. For the great edifice of variety and choice that is an American supermarket rests on a remarkably narrow biological foundation: corn. It's not merely the feed that the steers and the chickens and the pigs and the turkeys ate. It's not just the source of the flour and the oil and the leavenings, the glycerides and coloring in the processed foods. The precise relationship between fiction and life has been debated extensively. Most modern critics agree that, whatever its apparent factual content or verisimilitude, fiction is finally to be regarded as a structured imitation of life and should not be confused with a literal transcription of life itself. While fiction is a work of the imagination rather than reality, it can also be based closely on real events, sometimes experienced by the author. In a work of fiction, the author is not the same as the narrator, the voice that tells the story. Authors maintain a distance from their characters. Sometimes that distance is obvious. For instance, if a male writer tells a story from the point of view of a female character. Other times it is not so obvious, especially if we know something of the author's life and there are clear connections between the story and the author's life. Complementary therapies, such as those practiced by naturopaths, chiropractors and acupuncturists, have become increasingly popular in Australia over the last few decades. Interest initially coincided with enthusiasm for alternative lifestyles, while immigration and increased contact and trade with China have also had an influence. The status of complementary therapies is being revisited in a number of areas: legal regulation, the stances of doctors' associations, their inclusion in medical education, and scientific research into their efficacy. With the exception of acupuncture, complementary therapies are not routinely funded through Medicare, so there is little administrative data regarding their use. However, the ABS has some data about the use of complementary therapies which can help inform discussion. Allergies are abnormal immune system reactions to things that are typically harmless to most people. When you're allergic to something, your immune system mistakenly believes that this substance is harmful to your body. Substances that cause allergic reactions, such as certain foods, dust, plant pollen, or medicines, are known as allergens. In an attempt to protect the body, the immune system produces the antibodies to that allergen. Those antibodies then cause certain cells in the body to release chemicals into the bloodstream, one of which is histamine. The histamine then acts on the eyes, nose, throat, lungs, skin, or gastrointestinal tract and causes the symptoms of the allergic reaction. Future exposure to that same allergen will trigger this antibody response again. This means that every time you come into contact with that allergen, you'll have some form of allergy symptoms. From a child's point of view, what is the purpose of TV advertising? Is advertising on TV done to give actors the opportunity to take a rest or practice their lines? Or is it done to make people buy things? Furthermore, is the main difference between programs and commercials that commercials are for real, whereas programs are not, or that programs are for kids and commercials for adults? As has been shown several times in the literature, e.g. Butter et al. 1981, Donahue, Henk, and Donahue 1980, Macklin 1983 and 1987, Robertson and Rossiter 1974, Stevens and Stutz 1982, some children are able to distinguish between programs and commercials and are aware of the intent of TV advertising, whereas others are not. The Romans glorified the bravery shown in the arena, but trivialized the events and degraded the participants. Mosaic pictures of executions and combats, graphically violent to our eyes, were displayed in the public rooms and even dining rooms in the homes of wealthy Romans. How can the viewer today possibly understand such images? Until fairly recently, modern authors writing about the arena minimized its significance and represented the institutionalized violence as a sideline to Roman history. The tendency was also to view the events through our own eyes and to see them as pitiful or horrifying, although to most Romans empathy with victims of the arena was inconceivable. In the past few decades, however, scholars have started to analyze the complex motivations for deadly public entertainments and for contradictory views of gladiators as despised, yet beloved hero slaves. For many first-year students, the university may be their first experience living away from home for an extended period of time. It is a definite break from home. In my point of view, this is the best thing that you can do. I know you have to fend for yourself, cook and clean after yourself, basically look after yourself without your parents, but the truth is, sometime in your life you are going to have to part with lovely mummy and daddy. But they are only just a phone call away, and it is really good to have some quality time without them. The first few weeks can be a lonely period. There may be concerns about forming friendship. When new students look around, it may seem that everyone else is self-confident and socially successful. The reality is that everyone is having the same concerns. What is a country, and how is a country defined? When people ask how many countries there are in the world, they expect a simple answer. After all, we've explored the whole planet, we have international travel, satellite navigation and plenty of global organizations like the United Nations, so we should really know how many countries there are. However, the answer to the question varies according to whom you ask. Most people say there are 192 countries, but others point out that there could be more, like 260 of them. So why isn't there a straightforward answer? The problem arises because there isn't a universally agreed definition of country, and because, for political reasons, some countries find it convenient to recognize or not recognize other countries. An eccentric mix of English, German and French has entered Japanese usage with grand abandon. A career woman is a career woman, and a mansion is an apartment. This increasing use of katakana, or unique Japanese versions of Western words, and the younger generation's more casual use of the Japanese language have prompted Prime Minister Junichiro Koizumi to worry that these new words may not be understood by a wider audience. As a result, a government panel is proposing to publish a manual on how to speak proper Japanese. Foreign words became katakana Japanese because no existing Japanese words could quite capture a specific meaning or feeling. You learn various social skills. You have to get along with your roommates. Living with them can present special, sometimes intense, problems. Negotiating respect of personal property, personal space, sleep, and relaxation needs can be a complex task. The complexity increases when roommates are of different backgrounds with very different values. It is unrealistic to expect that roommates will be best friends. Meaningful, new relationships should not be expected to develop overnight. It took a great deal of time to develop intimacy in high school friendships. The same will be true of intimacy in university friendships.